Hey everybody, welcome back. The Kolpack and Izzo podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank. Year number 13 with the veteran, the venerable.
Lucky 13.
Yes, Jeff Kolpack. I am Dom Izzo. Welcome to 2022 and a new season of FCS football. North Dakota State set to open up the season a week from Saturday as we tape this against the Drake Bulldogs. We wanted to record this today to get you ready for week 0, to really sink your teeth into some of the matchups that are going on this weekend. Some are better than others. But, Jeffrey, a long offseason is now over. Fall camp wrapped up earlier this week. And here we go with the 2022 season.
Is it really that long, though, in this program?
Not anymore.
Because you're always playing into January.
Yeah.
Certainly 9 of the last 11 seasons. Of course, let's not get into the spring season because actually it's irrelevant to me. Yeah. It really is. But you get a team here, as I look at the two deep, a lot of familiar names.
Yep.
And that tells me they're going to be pretty good again. Yeah,
we're going to go through kind of an overview of all the positions, give a couple highlight guys, maybe some new players that are going to emerge or we may think will emerge in 2022 before we start our usual deep dive on this. And we'll be with you throughout the season to get you ready for Bison games, which, of course, will be back on WDAY. We'll give you a bit of our coverage as well with some changes for this year. We're excited about that. We're not sitting on our laurels. We had a good first year, but we're going to change some things up for 2022, and we're excited about that. Let's first start coaching staff-wise, because there are a couple changes there. I know you've talked to each of the new guys. I have as well. Majority of the staff stayed in place. Buda Williams was the staff of the position coaches to leave as he left for a job at Colorado State.
And so what we make of it is Nick Gazer, a veteran of the staff, the longest tenured coach with the Bison, is taking the entire defensive line instead of just the defensive tackles. That's stuff we won't know. I mean, they'll know mainly the film room and their own evaluations. I don't know if that's some stuff that we will know just sitting there watching the game, with our trained eyes, if you will. But I guess that frees David Braun to do more of the thinking and game planning and defensive coordinator stuff.
I was interested because we visited with Nick last week, and he said, and I asked him about that. So do you have now getting a relationship with the defensive ends because he's worked strictly with the defensive tackles, and he said it's been helpful, obviously, to have Spencer Wagee there and Tony Pierce and Jake Cava. Those are three all 5th or 6th year guys that have been in that room to kind of help Nick there.
Let me ask you a question. Is this risky for the coaching staff? Because defensive line, other than quarterback, I think is the next most important position on a football team.
Yep. Risky in terms of having just one person do it? This is probably what majority of at least FCS teams certainly have, that NDSU has stayed away from that.
You're deviating from the formula.
Yeah, potentially. I think maybe this is just a stopgap that they're going to do that, but because you can never really control when guys leave, especially timing of it, when the Bison, as you mentioned, are playing into January. I like to wait and see. Gazer's been you mentioned, a veteran guy. He knows the Bison almost better than anybody, and I don't think so, especially with having Wagee there, Jeff. That's a big deal, and that gets overlooked.
Jake Cava.
And those guys have played a ton of football. That can help, I think, in more matters than not. And
Tony Pierce, he's been around.
And we're looking at defensive tackle, and we'll get into this when we go through the positions. That's a spot that the Bison are green at. They have some experience, but they lost Lane Tucker. Costner Ching played a ton of reps the last couple of years. And as you have talked about so often when we've done this, they got better later in their careers. Their last 2 years for each of those guys was their best 2 years of Bison football.
And that's what you'd expect that if you're going to be good in the defensive line. It's a maturity position. It's
Correct.
Like the offensive line. You grow into that spot. You don't come in a hardened 285-pounder, usually out of high school. And let's not forget about the technique stuff either.
Yep. The one new member of the staff, Lou Walker, comes in from Monmouth. He's now the cornerbacks coach as Cody Morgan takes over both special teams, which was what Nick Gazer was doing, and safeties. So that's the new roles there for the Bison coaching staff for 2022. Let's start at the top. This time last year, we were talking about the new starter, which was Quincy Patterson. There is a new starter in 2022, and obviously Cam Miller with that job. Just 10 starts, a national championship under his belt, but the unquestioned guy now is the starter.
I think he carries himself better than 10 starts because I think he's been around enough. He's a son of a high school coach. He's the guy now. And NDSU's offense was far more dynamic with him with
There's
a
no doubt
dual threat
about
role
that.
than Quincy. Quincy had his limitations. He had trouble throwing the out pass. He had trouble throwing the medium range pass. He had a hell of an arm.
Yes.
And he was a great runner, but he wasn't the complete package, and that's what Cam Miller provides you.
Here's the crazy stat, and I'll break it out. I was going to break it out on our first game. Miller started 10 games, right? 6 of them are playoff games, Jeff. 6. So 60% have been in the win or go home games.
When it counts.
Right? And that's amazing.
That's a great nerd stat.
But you look at, and I'm interviewing him on Media Day. I also got a complete sense of calm out of him. And he said, this time last year, I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was trying to deal with not winning the job and being a good teammate. And I asked him,
being the losing quarterback at Sam Houston.
Correct. And he said, I asked him, when did you think it was your team? And he said, right after the Missouri State game. He said, I thought I did enough to show the coaches. I came in there, played like I did. They won the game, that I earned that position. There's no arguing that, Jeff.
And I'll never forget the column I did after the Missouri State game when he came in after halftime and replaced Quincy. And essentially the column's theme was NDSU could thank Cam Miller for not going in the transfer portal.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Because we saw that.
Yep.
Northern Iowa's starting quarterback went in the transfer portal when he didn't get the job after one game.
Yep. So, obviously, Patterson has moved on. Cole Payton is going to be the backup. Matt Entz told me, I would imagine that you're going to see a package for Cole Payton. Maybe not exactly what they had with Quincy Patterson at the end of last season, but for the highly touted redshirt freshman out of Omaha, we're going to see him on the field this year.
I got the sense from Matt Entz that they're going to ease their way into that a little bit.
I agree with you. Yep.
I don't think, and he may see a lot of time against Drake just because it's Drake.
And North Carolina A&T. Yep. I think both. You're going to see him quite a bit.
Will you see him much against Arizona? I don't think so.
Yep.
We'll see.
The sky is the limit there. I mean, watching practice, you and I have been out quite a few times. He's quicker. He's even added a couple more pounds. I think he's up to an even 230 now. And the zip on his arm is
I think he's
there.
north of 230.
Really?
Yeah, 233 is what I hear.
Holy cow. And the zip is there. I mean, all the prototype you want, that's... Matt Entz said, we got to play all of our best players. We believe he's one of our best players, that he's got to get on the field. So I think for Bison fans that got to see that 2-quarterback tandem through the FCS playoffs, I think it'll be sprinkled in early, but I think, Jeff, you bring up a good point. Maybe not for the FBS game with Arizona and then in a conference play.
I hear from Bison fans, well, is Cole Payton going to be happy? He's going to transfer if he doesn't play.
That's a good point. I don't dismiss the question because of the era we live in now. What do you say to that?
Well, I say to that is you play your best guy.
Yep.
Your job is to win football games, not keep kids happy.
Yep. And if he happens to leave, then
he happens to leave.
That's kind of the deal. Running back, you have written about this. And what was the stat again? To have all these guys back first time since when?
2005.
Holy cow.
And that's when they only had like 3 or 4 backs. I mean, they didn't have many. It was like Steffes and a couple other guys. And Craig Bolt didn't bring in a whole lot of backs back in the day.
Ran him into the ground. This is quite the backfield with everyone back, led by Tamarick Williams, who looks like he's working his way back on the field. I know there was some frustration when fall camp started about a lingering injury from January that had bothered Williams, who, it's funny, he was the mop-up guy at the start of last year, Jeff. He was the guy when you got to the semifinals against James Madison.
And it started Youngstown.
Yep.
That's when they said, okay, you know what, we're going to use this guy. He's big and fast, and we need to use him. He's been in the program long enough. How many programs have every running back that didn't get robbed by the transfer portal?
That's
usually the 4th or 5th guy's out of here.
Correct. Yep. So you've got Tamarick back, and I thought he really ran hard as the season went along. When you got to see him, you mentioned the Youngstown game, South Dakota game, Southern Illinois, East Tennessee State. He was a load to bring down.
Now is he healthy?
Well, that's the thing. And if he's not, with the games they have at the start and the amount of guys, maybe you don't need him for games 1 and 2.
And let's include Hunter Lipke in the running back.
I'll get to Lipke in a second here. Dom Ganella's back, and there's a guy who didn't see the rest of the season. I don't think he was healthy after the UND game.
We believe, and they never confirmed, but we believe it was a high ankle sprain, and those are hard to come back from.
Because the first 3 games, Jeff, he ran like a house of fire. That game against Albany, which obviously was his best game, the first one, and the Towson game, he was like a freight train running through the offensive
and then got hurt
line
against UND.
So we really didn't see him at full strength after that. Then you've got, I think, the guy this year. I think Kobe Johnson is going to be the guy. He looks bigger. He looks even quicker. we saw he just gets lost in the shuffle because you've got Lipke, Tamarick. We'll talk about Jalen Bussey, Ganella. But he broke one in the national championship
game. Yeah, he got lost in the crowd there. I think they underestimated him.
He had the 97-yard touchdown run against Indiana State.
The kickoff return against Youngstown.
I think he's due for a monster 2022. The bus is back. Jalen Bussey, who just every time he touches the ball, seems he scores a touchdown.
And he'll still be the limited guy, I think, a little change-up, if you will.
I think they like TK Marshall, and the other guy to talk about is West Fargo Cheyenne's Barika Penu, because there is enough momentum moving there. You talked about Drake in North Carolina A&T. You're going to see a lot of number 8 out there.
I think we're going to see a lot, especially in the first 2 games. Yep. So they're going to see, okay, Barika, what do you got?
There's a reason why Iowa State came in late. I keep hearing that. I saw it up close, and I come from a biased point of view, Jeff. I saw him play at Cheyenne. He was dominant against North Dakota high school football.
Have you seen him walking off the practice field without his pads on? It looks like he still has pads on.
Impressive young man. And then you mentioned it, is Hunter Lipke, which is I'm really interested to see how they use him this year, because there were a couple games last year, South Dakota State, where he never touched the ball. I don't know if he was hurt. Still really don't have a clarification on that. But I don't think we're going to see him a whole lot till Arizona. I really don't.
Absolutely. Why would you?
Right?
Why would you? And they really did that last year, too.
They did. Yep. They used him
brought him along slow.
In pieces last year. Like the Towson game was
the UND game, they needed him.
And the UND game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. They said meaning the offense, said, well, this is the only thing that's working, is Quincy running and Hunter Lipke running, because Quincy couldn't throw against UND.
Offensive line, I know you want to talk about here for a second. Cordell Volson moved on, but they bring 4 starters back, including
9 of top 10,
including Cody Malk at left tackle. This is a really impressive offensive line with some movable pieces. The guys that we saw last year may not play that same position in 2022.
Well, Westberg, is he better than Sundell at center? Do you move Sundell?
I thought Westberg was really good when he came in for Jalen Sundell, including in the semifinal game against James Madison. Westy was good.
You also have Nash Jensen and Jay Kubas back at guard. It's going to be
Nash has started 40-some-odd games in a row.
It's going to be a lot of interchangeable parts.
And then Mason Miller is going to be a starter. The young man from Ada is going to work his way into the lineup. You're right. Sundell came here not as a center. Never played center before until actually at NDSU. That wouldn't surprise me if they split him out wide, either to guard or tackle. Sundell's actually a tackle that you could put him there.
Talking to Mason Miller, he goes, I feel like every day I have to earn my spot. And that's an
unbelievable thing to say there.
Right. It's not like you're penned in there. No, you are penciled in there.
Another guy that we should talk about, Mike McFeely wrote about, is Gray Zabel. Zabel is finally healthy after the terrible injury he suffered against South Dakota State in the spring. He really wasn't 100% at all last year. He's good to go and looks the part as well up front.
Yeah, he's big, mobile, fast, and he worked the farm with Cody Malk this summer.
Yeah, that's a heck of a thing. Speaking of Mr. Malk, it's just amazing, and we're going to do stories. I know you were down in Hankinson before the season got going, of where this is going to go with him, and I'm really intrigued. Like how Joe Haig came out of nowhere. Cody Malk is running that same kind of pattern here from Hankinson.
I can't remember what Bison player put it on Twitter, but they put his freshman NDSU photo on there. Yeah. And you're like, this guy, I mean, the growth is just amazing. He looked like he was like 14 years old compared to now.
Their offensive line is stacked again. Tight end I'm interested about. With Noah Gindorf is back and ready to go after the ankle injury that forced him to miss the end of last season. Then some young guys. Joe Stuffel's a name to keep an eye on. He only has 1 career catch, but the Bison coaching staff, Tyler Roll, can't say enough about what Stuffel is doing so far.
I think with Noah Gindorf now that he'll be the full-time guy, and again, you're probably not going to see a whole lot
I would imagine
against Drake, but being the full-time guy, I see him more in a Gronk role where he's going to be more of an intended target than he has been in the past. Sharing with Babbage, I mean, you just don't get that many plays and targets.
Stuffel, he's no Gindorf. I mean, Gindorf was 6'6", but Stuffel's 6'3", at least 250 probably. I mean, he's no small guy out there. And he was a huge recruit that they got out of River Falls, Wisconsin a couple years ago. Wide receiver is the really interesting one. Everyone wants to talk about that. So I'll let you have first crack at this with Christian Watson.
Yes, you lose Christian, but you have 4. Your next 4 guys are back. Yep. Now, will one of those step up? Do you need the deep threat that Christian? Nobody's going to.
You need a deep threat. I'll answer that. Yes. You can't replicate what he was, though. And that's the issue with the guys that you're talking about. that I think they're all the same, though. Phoenix Sproles,
6
DJ
foot.
Hart,
Raja Nelson, 5'9".
Braylon Henderson,
5'9".
they're all the same guy. Who's not are the two freshmen that are here in Carson Hegerle from West Fargo and Makai Collins from Mankato.
Yeah, Collins has been banged up in practice, but I've seen Hegerle work.
Hegerle's been working with
the
ones
a little bit.
And that's doesn't surprise me at all because the talent is certainly there.
Do you need to be 6'3" to go long?
I think it helps. I don't think it hurts. In this league,
or 6'6", like Mathis.
How often did they and there's a name I want to get to in a second. How many times did NDSU try to copy the Jake Winicky method, and it didn't work? And finally, they got it with Watson. Zach Mathis is an intriguing name, Jeff. Here's a guy in his 5th year that's been plagued with injury, who's finally started getting out on the practice field now after they were resting him throughout fall camp. It's on him this year. He's got all the ability.
I have to see it.
Yeah. I think he has the ability to do it. He's just got to do it, I guess, is the best way to say it. But that's one to certainly keep an eye on. I keep an eye on those freshmen. I really would, especially with the 4-game rule. If they see something out of those two to say,
in September?
Right. If we see something out of those two, say, you know what? Like RJ Urzadowski, we got to play you. You're too good to not play. You got to do it.
I think RJ was probably the last true freshman to play a bit significant role.
At that position, certainly. Yeah, I'd have to go a little into the archives on that. But RJ, remember Chris Kleiman telling us he's one of our best guys. We cannot not play him. Defensive line, as you already talked about with Nick Gazer taking over there are certainly some changes. Logan McCormick, gone. Braden Thomas, gone. Costner Ching, gone. Lane Tucker, gone. Now,
Michael Buto.
Buto, it was really good last year. He's gone too. Name everybody, I think, overlooks Spencer Wagee, and he's back for a 6th year.
Yeah, and it starts inside, though. And I think you're going to look at the most starts right there as, okay, this is the year that the most starts sandwich is really going to make a difference. Eli, we saw glimpses of All-American ability. I think Will is going to be right up there this year. Don't overlook Javier Derrick.
Yeah, he was really good at the end of last season. The James Madison game, the last play, the Talbert pick, Derrick is the one that got in there to blow that play up on Cole Johnson. He was really good at the end of the last season.
Yeah, and they expected a lot from him. Now he's probably, 285.
He's up there, yep. The Mostar twins now will play next to one another, and that's really that they did that in high school, led them to Lakeville North to a state championship. That Eli is poised for All-American. I'm right there with you.
Yep, but it's a spot where I think you're going to see maybe a new guy come to fruition here and get some time. And I look at Duttenheffer.
Jackson Duttenheffer is the guy. Yep, Mandan, North Dakota, who dressed a couple times last year. So I look at him, and this may be totally unfair to him, redshirt freshman, young man named Nate Tangway, who came out as a redshirt freshman. I know they're not the same size, but they are the same type of player in my mind. Nate made an instant impact. You'll remember that Iowa State game. I think you see immediately with Duttenheffer make that. He was a dynamite high school player. And everything I've heard from the coaching staff says he's a Bison. He's a Bison. And I think that means something to him, especially at that position you're talking about. On the outside, Tony Pierce is back, which they're hoping for big things. Cava obviously returns there. Loshaka Rokes is the name to keep an eye on in my mind from Wayzata, Minnesota.
I think the development of Jake Cava is such a great story.
Good story. Yep.
Where he was just not really heralded coming out of high school and just developed.
Yep.
And he's explosive. He made a couple plays in the playoffs.
Did Southern Illinois game, yep. In postseason he did. I like those guys. Rokes has added, I think, 10 more pounds, he told me. He flashed in times last year. I think that's
more of the rush end, I think.
I think you're going to see him play quite a bit. Let's hit linebacker. We've talked about it seems like all month, and now the rubber's about to hit the road at this spot.
Well, who's going to be in the middle? Is it going to be Wirtz?
I think it's Wirtz. I think Wirtz is going to start. If I have no inside information on that, I would tell you right now, I think
it's going to be Kubitz.
Okay. Well, you know what it's going to be on the depth chart? Or is going to be on the depth chart for the game.
Well, I think September is going to be a tryout.
Yeah, those first couple games, possibly. On the outside, that's also the other spot, opposite of James Kazer, because Cole Wisniewski is not going to play these first couple games, maybe not even play till Missouri Valley Conference play, that Julian Wodarczyk is going to get a look out there. Oscar Benson's going to get a look out there. Those are two guys that have a lot of talent. Enoch Sivamana is going to get a look too, the Fargo South kid. Those are all guys that you're going to see these first couple games to. And how many years have we done this? That they need to rotate their guys. They may actually could do that at linebacker this year.
I'm not convinced. I got to see it. I got to see it.
You just wrote about this yesterday. You can check it out at inforum.com about the depth at the secondary.
Perhaps the best in the Division I era.
I'll take perhaps out of it. I think it is.
It is.
With the guys they have, I'm not saying they're better than what Marcus Williams and C.J. Smith of that and Robbie Grimsley of that character. I'm saying
deeper.
These guys all could start anywhere else in this conference easily. Dom Jones could be a starter last year. He barely played, and he started in the spring. You know?
And Michael Tutsey's been around.
Tutsey and Weber are 6-year guys.
Yeah.
I mean, they are literally, both of them could pass Dudzik and Hegel for games played. I didn't think that was going to happen.
I'm not sold on 6-year guys yet being automatically ingrained into standout status, because look at Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
They had 16 6-year guys.
It's true.
And I just sensed some malaise at the end of the year.
I think
they never got better.
Yeah.
They didn't.
I don't think that's going to happen with these two.
I don't think so either.
Tutsey was awesome last year. After he was not good in the spring, he had a rock solid 2021.
Again, the son of a football coach, and football's his blood. I think I'm with you.
Jones was really good, or excuse me, Talbot. Talbot was really good. Weber had 4 picks last year. He was all over the place. And then you mentioned those two guys. Talbot, I picked as my most improved player last year. He was dynamite,
especially tackling, because I think we saw a lot of missed tackles from him early in his career. A little more sure-handed last year. Of course, that James Madison play will forever go down in history of Bison lore. But I look at the corners. You're 4 deep. You're a solid 4 deep. Eubanks, really good.
Eubanks is a stud. I told him this at Media Day. Like I felt like I didn't call your name at all last year. And there's a reason for that.
They never threw him.
They're not going that side of the field already. Jaden Price gets overlooked because of his return ability, but he was really good. Marquis Siegel.
Look out for that guy.
Yeah, there's another name to... He had a pick against Indiana State, if I remember correctly, last year. That's one to keep an eye on in that cornerback room. Special teams, before we wrap this puppy up. Now, that's intriguing because we still don't know. We think who might be the starting kicker is in Griffin Crosa, but that hasn't been formally announced yet. They'll also have a new long snapper. They brought in, that's a true freshman, much like it was last year. Mike Florentine left in the transfer portal, went to Northern Illinois. Caleb Bowers, they bring in, high school kid that is going to do the long snapping.
Well, if we say his name, that's not good. So we'll find out.
And I can't say, I thought Steindorf should have been all conference last year. I thought he was that good in his first year as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, kid comes here as a walk-on from Oregon.
Yeah.
And just loves it here.
And has done a good job. I mean, I think he had 20 kicks inside the 20 last year. That's big time. And a couple really deep.
Don't overlook kicker, though. I mean, you cannot overlook it.
They've been unbelievable at that spot. Going back to Ryan Jastrom, right, for the first championship. Then Adam Keller comes in and sets every record for 3 years. And then Cam Peterson comes and breaks all of those records for 4 years. Then Jake Reynolds comes in and unfortunately gets hurt in the first game he ever kicks, but comes back and was a really solid guy. That's the run they've had over the last decade.
Jake won the UND game.
He did. He had 3 big kicks.
In that environment. He won the UND game.
And a couple of them were long, too. They were not easy kicks that he delivered on there. So we did this during the Sports Sunday special last week. You're saying 10-1?
I say 10-1. You say 10-1.
I say 10-1 as well.
We differ on the loss.
Yeah, undefeated is really difficult. And the thing that's out there, and I think we're both picking it now, is the FBS game. We both think they're going to win at Arizona.
I think that's a team that is different to play from an FBS level.
Yeah.
The physical nature of NDSU, it's been proven over the years, and I still say this, and I'll say it forever. FBS teams overlook a team from North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
You're from where?
Even this one?
Even this one. Colorado State overlooked them, and they admitted it after the game. Dom, Colorado State coming off a bad year overlooked North Dakota State.
Iowa didn't overlook them. I don't think Iowa did they?
Oh, come on. They're recruited to beat Ohio State.
Ferentz didn't overlook them. Maybe the players
The coaches are not overlooking them. Yeah. You don't. I mean, I'm just saying.
All right.
Kids wake up on Saturday morning.
Not ready to play North Dakota State. I get what you're saying.
You're recruited to beat UCLA, USC, Arizona State.
For now. They're set to leave the Pac-12, but I get you.
I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying by nature, they overlook a team from where?
Yeah.
People are geographically stupid in this country, by the way. I'm surprised you found North Dakota. You just started driving west and hoped to bump into it.
I just ran into it. What do you expect fan-wise? This is the first time in 6 years they were going to play an FBS game.
I feel like something's a little more in tune this year with attendance. There's only 1,400 left for Drake.
That's really good.
That was yesterday.
It's really good.
UND is going to be a sellout. South Dakota State's going to be a sellout. Youngstown,
It's homecoming. But the schedule is suited to him this year, Jeff. Next year, if you looked already with Murray State coming in, if you look at the conference home games, good luck on the marketing department. That is a tough sell if you're up there at NDSU right now for those games.
Much better this year.
Because you've got SDSU and UND on there. I'm really intrigued, and I know you have a bunch of friends in Arizona on how many people are going to go to Tucson.
I'm putting it at 10,000.
You're setting the number at 10. I think it's going to be above 10.
You think?
I do.
There's a lot of people going.
Is there? Yeah.
There's a lot of people going.
It's later. It's a 10 o'clock Central Time start. It's I think you can get away. It's a weekend getaway. What is the flight path again you can do down there?
Well, Allegiant, you go Fargo to Mesa, and then it's an hour and a half drive.
You can do that. And NDSU's got a huge alumni base down there,
too. There's just a huge alumni base there, too. Yep, you're right.
That's going to be a monster deal there.
You talk to retired people who go to some bars to watch football games every fall, and there's a couple that are just literally packed with NDSU fans. And they have the game. They have NDSU on every TV.
Every TV. That's cool. Just a heads up before we go as we get set for another year of TV, internet, streaming coverage. Of course, we're going to have you fully covered on the Bison Media Zone. Myself, Jeff, Mike McFeely, Eric Peterson will have you covered. Starting basically this Monday, the Mad Ants press conference will be live on WDAY Extra, Inforum.com every Monday at 2 o'clock. Kolpack will have stories every day. Mike will, Jeff will, or Eric will throughout the week. Leading up, our podcast, of course, will be available Inforum.com, wherever you find your podcast. You can get us ready to go. In anticipation, Bison Game Day back 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings, and I'll explain it briefly because I think people now know when to expect us. Jeff, again, is going to be part of that, along with Kyle Emanuel and Logan Campbell. With ABC having games on at 11, we've decided to go on at 10 a.m., not to preempt the ABC game. New this year, though, we are going to start our broadcast at 2:20 for the home games. So you will get to see the tunnel walk, all of the preamble for the game. You'll get to see live on WDAY and then kick off right after that. And, of course, you're going to be part of our game broadcasts with halftime updates with Logan again.
I've got big plans for you, buddy boy, in pregame, in the pregame show. Oh, yeah. I've had an off season to think about this. Last year, it was sort of, we weren't sure at this point. I've got big plans for you.
Halberstad's kicked out of the park for you, man. You look good last year.
You better be on your game.
I'm ready. Believe me, I'll be ready to go. I got to up the ante on the suit game.
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for approval for my first pregame show on what I'm going to do for my pick.
So
I need corporate approval on this one.
So of course we'll do our FCS pick'em. We'll have some great guests joining us throughout the season, and just again for the games that we are not doing. Arizona is on Fox Sports 1, so we are not able to televise that game. And then the game at Western Illinois is the Missouri Valley Football Conference game of the week. That's exclusive to ESPN+. We'll still have pregame, all that from each of those locations and coverage, but we will not be televising those two games.
Plus a double dose of pregame on the Arizona.
Yeah, we're going to do a pregame early in the morning and then a pregame late at night before the game kicks off. So if there's any equivocation of where to find the best Bison coverage, which there isn't, of course, you've got it at Forum Communications, and we are ready to rock and roll. Enjoy the last weekend of non-football here, and then we'll be ready to go on Monday. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo podcast. We'll see everybody next week as we get set for a new Bison football season.